Hey, welcome to this video. Today we will be falling asleep to what life was really like in Medieval Castle. Before we begin, comment down below what time it is where you live, and as always please subscribe only if you like these videos. Now let's paint a picture. Your eyes open, and the world is different. The air is cool, carrying the scent of damp earth and wood smoke. You're no longer in the land of pyramids or marble columns, but in a new age, the Middle Ages, stretching across the centuries after Rome's fall. Before you rise is a sight that dominates the horizon, a castle. Its walls loom high, cut from stone, thick and grey. At its base, a small village huddles, thatched roofs, smoking with the warmth of morning fires, peasants moving with baskets of bread and buckets of water. Children run barefoot through the mud, chasing chickens and shouting, their voices echoing against the stone. Above them, the castle stands silent, watchful. Castles were more than buildings. They were symbols of protection, of authority, of power. In an age when kingdoms fractured, when warlords battled for land, when raiders swept across fields, the castle became both refuge and threat. To peasants, it was safety in times of war, its gates a shield against chaos. To enemies, it was defiance carved in stone, daring them to try and break it. Walk closer, and you notice the design. Castles were not built at random. They crowned hillsides, where their walls could be seen for miles. They overlooked rivers, securing bridges and trade routes. Some rose on lonely plains, their ditches filled with water, moats that shimmer under sunlight, hiding sharp stakes below. Every detail had purpose. Every tower, every arrow slit, every twisting stair was part of a grand design, a machine for survival. Step through the gates in your mind. The iron portcullis creaks as it lowers, the chains clattering. Inside, the courtyard spreads wide. Horses stamp their hooves on cobblestones. Blacksmiths hammer iron at the forge. The smell of bread wafts from a bakehouse. Dogs bark as servants hurry past with buckets. Life here is not quiet, nor is it glamorous. It is a world of constant movement, endless tasks, layers of sound and smell. Above, banners ripple in the wind, the colours of the Lord who rules within these walls. Yet for all their strength, castles were not just fortresses, they were homes. Families laughed within them, knights trained for war, children grew up, and prayers rose daily from chapels. They were places where ordinary life unfolded against extraordinary walls. This is the world we're about to explore. The real life inside medieval castles. Not the fairy tales of glittering banquets and damsels in towers, but the reality of stone floors cold in winter, of servants rising before dawn, of smoke-filled kitchens, and of guards forever watchful on the walls. Over the next hours we will wander through every corner, the Lord's chamber and the servants' stable, the kitchens and chapels, the barracks and gardens. We will hear the clash of hammers, the whispers of prayers, the laughter of feasts and the silence of sieges. Close your eyes. Listen to the wind on the battlements, the murmur of voices in the hall, the clang of iron at the forge. This is no myth. This was life, hard, busy, dangerous, but also filled with moments of music, joy, and rest. This is the world of the medieval castle. Next, let's talk about building a castle which took stone, sweat, and strategy. Your eyes open again, and the world is filled with noise. Not the quiet hum of daily life within castle walls, but the thunder of creation. Before you stands not a finished fortress, but a vision taking shape, a castle being built. The process begins long before the first stone is laid. A lord, eager to secure his land, chooses a site with care. Perhaps a hilltop, steep and commanding, where attackers must struggle uphill under arrows, or a river bank, where the flowing water can fill moats and supply fish, or a vital crossroad, where trade can be taxed and travellers controlled. Wherever the site, it must speak of strength, safety, and dominance. Now imagine the labour. Hundreds, sometimes thousands of men gather. Peasants pressed into service, carpenters, quarrymen, stonemasons, blacksmiths. Oxen drag timber from forests. Carts groan under the weight of stone. The air is heavy with dust and the sound of chisels splitting rock. The foundation is dug deep. Trenches are carved, filled with rubble and stone to anchor the weight of the walls. Masons shape limestone, sandstone, or granite, depending on what the land offers, into blocks. Each block is raised with wooden cranes pulled by ropes creaking as they sway into place. Mortar made from lime binds them together, sealing gaps, holding firm. The walls rise slowly, day by day, year by year. Wooden scaffolds climb higher, ladders leaning against stone. Workers scramble like ants, hauling, hammering, sweating in sun and rain. Injuries are common. Falls, crushed hands, broken bones. Yet the work never stops. For every stone placed is not just construction. It is a declaration of power. Look closely at the design. These are not walls thrown up at random. They are strategic machines of war. Towers jut outward, allowing defenders to fire along the sorties in deadly crossfire. Arrow slits pierce the stone, narrow on the outside, wide on the inside, so archers can shoot safely while barely being seen. Staircases spiral clockwise upward, so a right-handed defender has room to swing his sword, while an attacker is cramped against the inner wall. Gatehouses bristle with traps, murder holes in the ceiling where boiling water or heavy stones can rain down on intruders. Moats encircle the walls, sometimes filled with water, sometimes with dry ditches lined with stakes. Inside, spaces are carefully arranged. At the core stands the keep, the great tower, last refuge if the walls fall. Around it lie kitchens, storerooms, stables, and chapels. The great hall rises large and high, a place for meals, for justice, for gatherings. Every inch is built with thought. How to defend, how to endure. Building a castle could take 10, 20, even 30 years. Some outlived their builders, finished by sons and grandsons. The cost was immense. Stone had to be quarried, iron smelted, timber hauled for miles. Taxes were raised, peasants laboured, nobles poured fortunes into these walls. To build a castle was to bind wealth, time, and human life into stone. And yet, once complete, the reward was undeniable. From miles away, peasants could see it rising above the fields, a reminder of who ruled them and where to run in times of danger. Enemies saw it too, looming and unyielding, daring them to try their strength against it. Walk now through the half-built walls in your mind. Hear the shouts of overseers, the clatter of carts, the crack of hammers. Smell the sharp scent of cut stone, the pitch from wooden scaffolds, the sweat of men hauling ropes. Look up and imagine the walls still climbing, the towers unfinished, yet already the shape of power is clear. These castles were more than homes. They were fortresses carved into the earth, monuments to ambition, machines of war dressed as dwellings. They were born of strategy, sweat, and stone, each one unique, yet each sharing the same purpose: to hold, to endure, to rule. Close your eyes and let the sounds of hammers fade. The scaffolding creaks. The wind whistles through empty windows not yet filled with glass. The castle is unfinished, but its shadow already stretches across the land. This was how a castle began. Now let's talk about the lord and lady, also known as the masters of the castle. Your eyes open again, and you find yourself inside a finished castle. The walls rise tall around you, banners flutter gently overhead, and the air is cool with the weight of stone. At the centre of this world live two figures, the lord and the lady of the castle. Their presence shapes everything within these walls. The lord is more than the master of the household. He is a noble sworn to his king, bound by oaths of loyalty, land and sword. His word is law in the lands around him. To peasants in the villages he is both protector and ruler. To his men-at-arms he is commander. To his household he is master. Each morning his duties pull him in many directions. Picture him rising from his chamber. His room is simple compared to modern standards. A bed with heavy curtains to keep out drafts, a chest for clothing, a small table with wax tablets or parchment. The air is smoky from the great hall's hearth below, drifting upward through the cracks. Servants enter quietly, bringing water to wash, a tunic to wear, a cloak lined with fur in winter. Soon he is in the great hall, the heart of the castle. This vast chamber, with its high timbered roof and banners along the walls, is where he conducts his rule. Villagers arrive to settle disputes. Messengers bring news of taxes, trade or war. His stewards update him on the stores of grain, the repairs to walls, the accounts of rents owed by peasants. If danger looms, he must think as a soldier. He inspects weapons, oversees drills, ensures the armory is stocked. He knows that castles are not only homes but fortresses, and that his first duty is to defend. But he is not alone in this weight. Beside him, often equally powerful within these walls, stands the lady of the castle. Her role is as commanding in daily life as the lord's is in war. The lady oversees the running of the household, a vast and complicated task. She manages the servants, ensures food supplies are stocked, and organizes the preparation of meals. She oversees the clothing of the household, the laundry, the spinning of wool, and the mending of garments. When guests arrive, she sees to their comfort, their rooms, their meals, their entertainment. Imagine her walking the stone corridors, keys jingling at her waist, the keys to storerooms, to pantries, to chambers. She speaks with cooks about the evening meal, with servants about cleaning, with stewards about supplies. Nothing moves within the castle without her notice, and when the lord is away, whether at war, at court, or on pilgrimage, the lady may rule in his stead. Chronicles tell of women who held castles under siege, commanding men-at-arms from the battlements, negotiating with enemies, and enduring hardship with steel in their hearts. One such woman, Nicola de la Haye, defended Lincoln Castle in 1217 against powerful armies, proving that the authority of a lady was not mere ceremony, but a living force. Together the lord and lady host feasts in the great hall. Imagine the scene: long wooden tables spread with trenchers of bread, roasted meats, bowls of stewed vegetables. Minstrels play lutes while jugglers entertain. The hall echoes with laughter, clinking cups, the voices of nobles and guests. Yet even these feasts are bound by rules of etiquette, by the demonstration of wealth and order. At night, they retire to their private chamber. The lord and lady's bed is enclosed with curtains to hold in warmth, stuffed with straw or down, covered in heavy blankets. A brazier glows faintly in the sauna. Outside the chamber, guards keep watch in the halls, while servants sleep nearby in case they are called. Their lives are privileged compared to those of the peasants or soldiers, yet comfort is relative. The stone walls are cold, the air is damp, fires give warmth, but also smoke. Drafts creep through cracks in the windows. Their wealth brings status and food, but not freedom from the hardships of the age. Above all, the lord and lady live surrounded by duty to their family, their household, their king, and their god. Their lives are measured in responsibility, in service, in the endless rhythm of command. Close your eyes. Hear the murmur of voices in the great hall, the scrape of knives on trenchers, the crackle of firelight on banners. See the lord and lady seated at the high table, their figures silhouetted against torchlight, steady at the heart of the castle. They are the masters of this world. Now comes the knights and soldiers, the castle's defenders. Your eyes open again, and you are in the courtyard of the castle. The air is alive with energy. Men move about with purpose, armour clinking, horses stamping against cobblestones. This is the world of the defenders, the knights and soldiers who guard the castle, ready to fight when danger comes. The knight is the most famous figure of this age. Picture him, armoured in mail or plate, his helmet polished to a dull shine, his sword at his side. He is a warrior bound by oath, sworn to his lord, and by extension to the king. His duty is to defend the land, to serve faithfully, to protect the weak, and to uphold the code of chivalry. Knighthood begins young. As boys, noble sons serve as pages, running errands, carrying messages, learning courtesy. By adolescence they become squires, training in the arts of war, practicing with wooden swords, caring for horses, polishing armour until it gleams. At 21, if they prove themselves, they kneel before their lord in a solemn ceremony and rise as knights. Now imagine the tilt-yard beside the castle walls. Knights train here, charging with lances, their horses thundering across the ground. The crack of wood shattering fills the air as lance meets shield. Nearby squires struggle with practice swords, sweat dripping down their brows, while older knights correct their stances. But knights are only a fraction of the defenders. Most of the garrison are men-at-arms, soldiers hired or obligated to serve. Some are peasants trained to fight when called, others mercenaries seeking pay. They guard the gates, patrol the walls, and man the watchtowers. Their lives are far from glamorous. Step inside the barracks. The smell of sweat, leather, and damp straw fills the room. Soldiers sleep shoulder to shoulder on rough bedding. They eat simple meals, dark bread, onions, pottage thickened with oats or peas, washed down with ale. They sharpen weapons, mend boots, tell stories by the fire. For them, castle life is duty and survival, nothing more. The walls are their watch. Hour by hour, men climb the battlements, scanning the horizon. They peer through narrow arrow slits, feeling the wind bite their faces. They listen for horns, for drums, for the telltale rumble of an approaching army. And when war comes, the castle becomes a hive of defence. Imagine the cry going up, "To arms!" Soldiers rush to positions, knights mount their horses, banners snapping in wind, archers string bows, dipping arrows in pitch to light them aflame. From the towers, defenders hurl stones, pour boiling water, or drop heavy beams onto attackers at the gate. Outside the walls, siege engines approach, trebuchets, great wooden arms swinging to hurl boulders against stone. Battering rams slam against the gates. The air is thick with smoke, arrows and shouting. Yet inside, the defenders hold fast. The castle was designed for this moment. Its walls are high, its gates strong, its keep ready as the last refuge. But sieges are not only fought with weapons, they are battles of endurance. Weeks, months may pass, with soldiers surviving on salted meat, stale bread, and dwindling supplies. Fear gnaws at them, fatigue wears them down. Still, they remain at their posts, for to falter is to let the enemy inside. Not all moments are war. Often, life for knights and soldiers is training, waiting and preparing. Horses are fed, weapons repaired, armour polished. The clang of the smithy rings out as blacksmiths hammer dents from helmets and rivet mail links back together. The courtyard hums with routine drills, the same motions repeated day after day. Yet in those long, slow hours, bonds are forged. Soldiers share jokes, tell tales of past campaigns, sing songs in the barracks. Knights train squires not only in combat, but in honour, loyalty and service. It is a life of discipline, but also of fellowship. Close your eyes and hear the sounds, the creak of leather armour, the neigh of a restless horse, the clang of a sword striking a shield in practice. See the defenders walking the walls, their silhouettes against the sky, ever watchful. The castle is strong not only because of its stone, but because of the men who stand upon it. These knights and soldiers are its heart, its shield, its living defence. Next comes the servants, the quiet hands behind the walls. Your eyes open once more, and the castle feels alive in a different way. Not with the clang of swords or the bark of soldiers, but with the quiet, constant rhythm of work. For behind every feast, every defence, every ordered household stood the servants. the unseen hands that made life within the walls possible. The castle may have belonged to a lord and lady, but it was held together by dozens, sometimes hundreds of workers. Their tasks filled every hour of the day, from the first glimmer of dawn to the last fading torchlight at night. Step first into the kitchens. They are hot, smoky, always busy. A fire roars in a great hearth, spits turn slowly with roasting meat. Large cauldrons hang over flames, bubbling with pottage thickened by oats and peas, flavoured with onions, leeks, or cabbage. The air smells of grease and herbs, of bread baking in stone ovens. Servants rush with trays, with buckets of water, with sacks of flour. Knives chop, ladles stir, wooden bowls clatter. In the bakehouse, dough is kneaded by hand, then shoved into ovens with long paddles. Fresh loaves emerge, their crusts dark and hard to be eaten by soldiers, servants, and sometimes, if made with fine white flour, by the nobility. In the brew-house, barrels of ale are brewed constantly, for water is often unsafe. The scent of malt fills the air, yeast froths in wooden vats, and servants roll casks across the floors to keep the garrison supplied. Now step into the stables. Horses stamp and snort, their breath steaming in cold air. Grooms brush their coats until they shine, mend saddles and tack, muck out stalls heavy with straw. Each horse is precious, whether a powerful destrier bred for knights or a simple cart horse hauling supplies. Without them, the castle's strength would falter. Elsewhere, laundresses scrub linen in wooden tubs, pounding cloth with paddles, rinsing it in cold water drawn from wells. They hang sheets and tunics in the courtyard, where the wind snaps them dry. The work is hard. Hands raw from lye soap and icy water, but it is essential. Within the castle chambers, chambermaids sweep rushes from the floors, carry jugs of water, make the beds with straw-filled mattresses, and light fires in braziers before the lord and lady rise. Butlers oversee storerooms of wine, salt, and spices. Cupbearers serve drinks at the table, trusted with the safety of every sip. The youngest of the household are the pages, boys sent to learn service and courtesy. They carry messages, fetch water, serve at table, and watch the ways of nobility. One day some will become squires and eventually knights. For now they are quick feet in the halls, running at a lord's call. Among them are women at work, spinners and seamstresses turning wool into thread, weaving it into cloth, mending worn garments by firelight. Others tend to herbs in the garden, making medicines for fevers and wounds. Some serve in the nursery, caring for children of the household, soothing their cries with lullabies whispered in dim stone chambers. The rhythm of their lives is unending. At dawn, fires must be lit. At noon, meals must be served. At dusk, chambers prepared for sleep. Their hands carry food, fetch water, clean filth, mend clothing, and ease illness. Few are remembered by name, but without them, castles could not have functioned for a single day. Their lives were not easy. The work was long, the pay meagre, the conditions harsh. Winters were bitter, summers sweltering in kitchens filled with smoke. Yet they endured. For them, the castle walls offered something beyond work: security. Within these stone walls they had food, shelter and protection from raiders or war. Close your eyes and hear their world. The scrape of knives on chopping boards, the snort of horses in stables, the splash of water in basins, the soft voices of maids whispering in dark halls. Their presence fills every space, even if history rarely records their names. They were the quiet hands behind the walls, the heartbeat of the castle. Now I'll describe the daily life like the food, faith and family. Your eyes open again, and this time the castle feels less like a fortress and more like a world of its own. Beyond war and labour, beyond lords and servants, lies the gentle rhythm of daily life. It is a rhythm shaped by food, by faith and by family, the three pillars that guided every soul within these walls. At the heart of this rhythm stands the chapel. Every castle, no matter how small, held a place of worship. Step inside and you'll see it. A narrow room lined with stone, its ceiling arched, its air heavy with incense. A small altar gleams with flickering candles, a crucifix above it casting long shadows. The voices of priests rise in chant, slow and steady, echoing against the cold walls. Faith ordered the day. At dawn, bells rang for matins, calling the household to prayer. At midday came sext, and at night, compline before sleep. Each prayer marked time, dividing hours into a sacred rhythm. For nobles and servants alike, life was framed by these moments of devotion. They prayed for health, for harvest, for safety from siege, for mercy in death. After prayer came meals, the second great anchor of daily life. Picture the great hall, bustling as benches are set, trenchers of bread placed on tables. Servants bring dishes of pottage, loaves of rye bread, pitchers of ale. For most, meals are simple. Porridge, beans, cabbage, fish if it can be caught fresh. But for the Lord's table, feasts can be more elaborate. Roasted venison, pork seasoned with garlic and herbs, pies filled with fruit, spiced wine. On great feast days, perhaps even swan or peacock, roasted and redressed in its feathers for display. Yet even here, the reality is humbler than fairy tales suggest. Forks are rare. Food is eaten with knives, spoons, or simply fingers. Trenchers of stale bread soak up meat juices, later given to servants or the poor. The air is full of noise, dogs barking under the tables hoping for scraps, minstrels strumming lutes, filling the space with music. The voices of guests and hosts alike rise in laughter, debate, or storytelling. At night, when the torches flare high, the hall glows with warmth, and the castle feels less like stone and more like home. But outside of feasts, daily life is far from easy. Winters are bitterly cold. Stone walls hold dampness, and fires do little to chase away the chill. Smoke lingers in rafters, stinging eyes. Rushes on the floor collect dirt, bones and waste until they are changed. Vermin scurry in storerooms, gnawing at supplies. Fleas and lice cling to bedding and clothing. And yet, there is joy. Children play in courtyards, chasing one another, inventing games with sticks and stones. Mothers sing lullabies in chambers by candlelight. Families gather in the evenings, telling stories while the fire crackles. Life may be hard, but it is also filled with moments of laughter and love. The family unit, especially among nobles, is central. Marriage is often a matter of alliance, binding families together through land and loyalty. Yet affection can grow, and children bring light into otherwise dark halls. Noble sons are groomed for service, sent as pages and squires to prepare for knighthood. Daughters are taught to manage households, to weave, to read scripture, and sometimes to write letters. Even among the servants, family is present. Husbands and wives may both work within the walls, their children serving as pages, stable boys, or kitchen helpers. Generations pass, all tied to the same castle: faith, food, family. These three wove together the tapestry of castle life. Each day was a balance of work and prayer, of meals and moments of rest, of duty and affection. They are the quiet threads beneath the noise of war, the silent heartbeat of medieval existence. Close your eyes now. Hear the chapel bell tolling in the distance. Smell the bread baking in the ovens. See a family gathered near the hearth, the glow of firelight soft on their faces. This is life not in battles or sieges, but in the gentle, steady rhythm of days. This was daily life in a medieval castle. Now let's talk entertainment and leisure. Your eyes open, and the castle no longer feels filled with labour or fear of war. Instead, you hear music drifting through the stone corridors, the sound of laughter, and the rhythm of hooves echoing from beyond the gates. For even within these stone walls, life was not only duty, it also held moments of entertainment and leisure. Step first into the great hall on a feast day. The tables are cleared of trenchers and dishes, and minstrels take their place by the fire. The strings of a harp shimmer, a flute sings softly, and voices rise in ballads of heroes long gone. They sing of King Arthur, of Charlemagne, of saints and martyrs, of battles fought in distant lands. Storytellers weave tales that hold listeners captive, tales of dragons, of hidden treasure, of star-crossed lovers. The hall glows with torchlight, shadows dancing on the walls as the music carries deep into the night. Now step outside where the fields beyond the castle come alive with tournaments. Here, knights display their skill in grand spectacles of martial sport. Imagine the tilt yard, the air heavy with dust. Two knights lower their lances, spurring their horses forward, the thunder of hooves shaking the earth. They meet with a crash of wood against shields, splinters flying. Crowds cheer. Lords and ladies watch from galleries, banners snapping in the wind. Not every contest is so grand. Some are more personal. Archery competitions, swordplay drills, games of strength. Young squires test their courage, knights sharpen their skills. Victories bring honour, gifts, or simply the satisfaction of proving one's might. For the nobility, hunting is the favoured pastime. Early in the morning, lords and ladies ride into the forests, their hounds barking, their falcons hooded on leather gloves. They chase deer through glades, boar through thickets, hares across meadows. The hunt is both sport and necessity, filling kitchens with venison and pork, but also reinforcing the nobility's dominance over land and beast alike. Falconry, in particular, is a mark of prestige. Picture a noblewoman releasing her falcon into the sky, its wings slicing through the air, circling higher and higher until it dives upon its prey. The bird returns to her glove, rewarded with meat, admired by all who watch. Inside the castle, leisure takes quieter forms. Nobles play chess, moving carved pieces of kings, queens and knights across a checkered board. Dice games rattle in wooden cups, fortunes won and lost in moments. Women gather to embroider, their needles flashing in the firelight, creating intricate tapestries that will hang on cold stone walls, bringing colour and warmth. Evenings often end with dancing. Musicians strike lively tunes and nobles step in rhythm, their movements formal yet joyous. The great hall echoes with clapping, with laughter, with the shuffle of feet across wooden floors. For the servants and peasants, leisure is simpler but no less joyful. After long days of labour, they might gather by firelight to sing folk songs, to tell stories passed from one generation to the next. On feast days or holidays they dance in the courtyard, light bonfires, wear garlands of flowers, and join in games. The Harvest Festival, Christmas and May Day brought brief moments when hardship gave way to celebration. In winter, where nights were long and cold, storytelling filled the silence. By the hearth, old tales were told of ghosts wandering moors, of spirits in forests, of heroes who battled against impossible odds. These stories, woven with both fear and wonder, connected the generations, reminding all of who they were and what they valued. Entertainment and leisure in castles were not constant. Work and war overshadowed most days. But when the moments came, they offered joy, beauty, and relief. They lifted the spirit, reminded the weary of life beyond survival, and gave meaning to days otherwise shaped by duty. Close your eyes and hear the strains of a lute. Picture a knight bowing before a lady after a dance, a falcon circling high above green hills, children laughing as they spin around a maypole in the courtyard. These are the moments that softened the edges of medieval life, fleeting, yet powerful. This was entertainment and leisure within the castle walls. Next, the children and education. Your eyes open once more, and this time you see the castle through different eyes, smaller eyes, full of wonder. For within these stone walls lived not only lords, ladies, and soldiers, but also children. Their footsteps echoed across the same halls, their laughter rang in courtyards, and their futures were carefully shaped from the moment they could walk. Life for children in castles depended greatly on status and birth. For noble sons and daughters, childhood was less about play and more about preparation. Their lives were paths set before them, toward knighthood, marriage, or service to the church. Picture a young boy of noble birth. At the age of 7, he is taken from the care of his mother and sent to serve as a page in another noble household. This was not punishment, but training, a tradition meant to teach loyalty, discipline, and courtesy. As a page, his duties are simple but strict, running errands, carrying messages, learning to serve at table. He rises early, assists the lord and lady, and watches everything: how to bow, how to speak, how to show respect. But his education is not only in service. Tutors or chaplains teach him the basics of reading and writing, often in Latin, the language of the church. He memorizes prayers, learns manners, and is trained in riding horses, handling falcons, and even in basic combat with wooden swords. His childhood is a careful shaping, turning boy into servant, servant into squire, squire into knight. By the age of 14, he becomes a squire. His duties grow heavier. He tends to his knight's armour, polishes it until it shines, cares for his weapons, and learns to fight with them himself. He accompanies his knight into the field, observes battles, and practices relentlessly in tilt yards. His days are filled with training. The weight of a shield on his arm, the sting of a sword against his practice armour, the discipline of horse and rider as one. And if he proves himself worthy at 21, he kneels before his lord and rises a knight, bound by honour and duty. Now imagine a young noble girl in the castle. Her education follows a different path, but one no less important. She's taught to manage a household, to oversee servants, to keep accounts of food and supplies. She learns the art of sewing and embroidery, creating garments and tapestries that brighten stone halls. She may also be taught music, singing hymns in the chapel or playing the lute in the great hall. Reading is sometimes part of her education, especially among wealthier families, and scripture becomes her guide. Some girls are taught to write, to correspond with family or manage estates. Marriage is her destiny, often arranged to forge alliances between families, but in the meantime, she is trained in the skills that will allow her to keep a household running. And for a few, life takes a different course. They enter convents, where they study more deeply, learning to read, to illuminate manuscripts, and to dedicate their lives to faith. For the children of servants and soldiers, education is more practical, grounded in the work around them. A boy may learn to groom horses in the stables, to draw water from wells, or to carry firewood into kitchens. A girl may help spin wool, fetch water, or serve in the chambers of the lady. From an early age they are immersed in labour, their skills shaped by necessity. Their childhoods are shorter, their responsibilities heavier. But no matter the rank, all children in castles knew play. Imagine them in the courtyards, their laughter bouncing off stone walls. Boys swing wooden swords, staging mock battles. Girls play with dolls of cloth and straw, or chase one another in games of tag. Simple toys bring joy. Wooden horses, carved animals, rattles, or balls stuffed with rags. Festivals bring special delight. On feast days, children dance with ribbons, sing with the crowd, and enjoy sweet treats of honey cakes or roasted nuts. Their eyes widen at the sight of jugglers, fire breathers, or travelling performers who pass through the castle. For a few brief hours, their world of duty and training is replaced by wonder. Education in castles was not a luxury. It was survival. It prepared noble sons to lead armies, noble daughters to manage households, and servant children to work within the structure that sustained these walls. Childhood here was not idle, but purposeful, every step pointing toward a role in the great machine of medieval life. Close your eyes and listen to the faint sound of children's laughter. Hear the scratch of quills on parchment, the thud of practice swords in the courtyard, the soft voice of a mother humming a lullaby in a dim chamber. Within these walls, the future of the castle was being shaped, small hands learning the ways of a world carved in stone. This was childhood and education in a medieval castle. Now let's talk about medicine and health. Your eyes open once again, and the castle feels quieter, more sombre. This time you notice the chill of the stone, the faint smell of herbs, and the echo of footsteps in narrow chambers. For within these walls, life was not only about feasts, battles, and prayers, it was also about sickness, wounds, and the fragile struggle to stay alive. This is the world of medicine and health in medieval castles. Health was a constant concern. Castles were strong in stone, but within their walls lurked dangers unseen. Cold air crept through cracks. Fires filled rooms with smoke, and dampness clung to stone floors. Water was often unclean, so most people drank ale instead. Safer because the brewing process killed many harmful microbes. Still, illnesses spread quickly. A cough could become a fever. A cut could turn to infection. Rats carried fleas. Fleas carried disease. In the great hall, rushes covered the floor, meant to soften the stone, but they trapped filth. Food scraps, bones, and waste. Fleas and lice thrived in bedding stuffed with straw. Hygiene was basic. People washed hands and faces, but baths were rare, often seen as luxuries or even as unhealthy by some physicians of the time. When illness came, medicine in castles was a mix of faith, tradition, and herbs. The castle priest might be called, offering prayers for healing, blessing the sick, or invoking saints known for miracles. A relic of a holy figure, perhaps a bone, a cloth, or a vial of oil, might be placed near the patient, believed to carry divine power. Alongside faith work the herbalists and healers. Step into a small chamber lined with bundles of dried herbs hanging from rafters. Here, remedies are prepared: garlic and honey for wounds, mint for digestion, chamomile for sleep, willow bark for pain. Herbs are crushed with mortar and pestle, brewed into teas, or pressed into poultices. The knowledge comes not from books, but from tradition, passed down through families, remembered in practice rather than parchment. For the nobles, especially in larger castles, there might be access to a physician. These men, educated in universities, studied the works of Galen and Hippocrates, and relied on the theory of the four humours: blood, phlegm, black bile, and yellow bile. They believed illness came from imbalance. A fever might mean too much blood to be treated by bloodletting. A sluggish body might mean excess phlegm, to be countered with hot spices. Patients might be purged, cupped, or bled with leeches in attempts to restore balance. But these treatments were as dangerous as the illnesses themselves. Many survived not because of the cures, but despite them. When soldiers were wounded in battle or siege, the need for healing was urgent. Picture the castle's infirmary, a dim room where straw mats are laid out for the injured. A soldier lies with an arrow lodged in his shoulder. A healer heats a knife in the fire to cauterize the wound, the smell of burning flesh filling the air. Another mixes vinegar and herbs to clean a cut, binding it with linen strips. Groans echo off the walls, but there is little choice. Pain is endured, because survival depends on it. Children were especially vulnerable. Fevers, infections, and malnutrition claimed many young lives before adulthood. Mothers prayed in chapels, cradling sick infants, hoping for mercy. Yet sometimes the simplest remedies, warmth, food, clean air, brought recovery where medicine could not. Plagues, when they came, were devastating. Disease swept through castles as easily as it swept through villages. The most feared, the Black Death, arrived in the 14th century carried by fleas on rats. Within days, fever, boils, and delirium spread. Castles were not spared. Lords, ladies, servants, soldiers, all could fall. Bells tolled in chapels, and fear lingered heavy in the halls. And yet amidst hardship knowledge slowly grew. Through contact with the Arab world and translations of ancient Greek texts, medical learning expanded. Castles sometimes kept manuscripts filled with notes on herbs, anatomy, and surgery. Over time, medicine began to shift from pure superstition toward careful observation. Still, for most, health remained fragile. Life expectancy was short, illnesses frequent, and remedies uncertain. People leaned on faith, trusted in herbs, and hoped in the resilience of their own bodies. Close your eyes. Hear the quiet murmur of prayers whispered over a sick bed, the crackle of fire beneath a pot of boiling herbs, the cough of a child echoing in a dark chamber. Feel the weight of fragility, the balance between life and death within these stone walls. This was medicine and health in a medieval castle, a world of faith and herbs, of wounds and healing, of prayers whispered in the dark. Next, the siege and survival. Your eyes open again, and the castle feels tense. The walls are manned, the gates closed, the drawbridge raised. Supplies are being gathered, weapons prepared. For outside the horizon darkens, not with storm clouds, but with armies. This is the fear every castle carried in its stone, the terror of siege. Castles were not built only as homes. They were fortresses, meant to resist attack, to endure when enemies came, and when they did, life inside changed completely. Picture the first sign, a distant horn blast carried on the wind. Riders rushed to the gates with news. An enemy force has been spotted, their banners flying, their troops marching. The order is given, seal the castle. The great wooden gates slam shut. The iron portcullis drops with a crash. Soldiers rush to the battlements. Servants drag barrels of grain and casks of ale into storerooms. Families from surrounding villages crowd inside the walls, clutching their few belongings. The castle becomes a prison, but a prison of safety. Everyone within knows it may be days, weeks, or even months before the siege is lifted. Outside, the enemy prepares. Siege engines roll forward, great wooden towers built higher than the walls, filled with soldiers ready to climb. Trebuchets swing, hurling boulders that crash against stone with thunderous force. Arrows rain down, the sky blackened with shafts. The castle shakes, but it stands. Inside, defenders work tirelessly. Archers loose arrows through narrow slits. Soldiers tip cauldrons, pouring boiling water or pitch through holes in the gatehouse. Stones are hurled from battlements, crashing onto the helmets of attackers. The air is thick with smoke, shouts, and fear. But sieges are not only fought with weapons, they are fought with time. For as days stretch into weeks, the true enemy becomes hunger. Bread hardens, salted meat dwindles, ale grows sour, fires burn low to conserve wood. Wells are guarded jealously, every drop of water counted. Rats scurry across storerooms, sometimes caught and eaten when supplies run low. The people grow weary. Children cry from hunger. Mothers whisper prayers in chapels lit only by guttering candles. Soldiers, their armour dented and their eyes heavy with exhaustion, stand watch through the night, waiting for the next attack. Disease too begins to spread. So many bodies crowded into tight spaces with little fresh air makes illness thrive. Coughs echo in dark chambers. Fevers burn through soldiers as surely as enemy blades. The smell of unwashed bodies and smoke fills the air, yet hope remains. A messenger may slip through enemy lines to bring word of allies on the march. Relief armies might come, or, if the enemy grows weary, they may lift the siege, retreating to fight another day. For the attacker too, a siege is costly. Supplies must be fed to their soldiers, engines repaired, patience tested. Sometimes the castle simply outlasted those who surrounded it, but not always. Many castles fell, their gates smashed by rams, their walls broken by stones, their defenders starved into surrender. For all their strength, no fortress was truly unbreakable. Still, imagine what it felt like when the siege was finally lifted. The horns blew again, but this time in victory. The enemy banners retreated across the hills. The gates creaked open, sunlight streaming into the courtyard. Families spilled into the fresh air, their faces pale but relieved. Soldiers leaned against their weapons, weary but alive. The castle, battered and scarred, still stood, a testament to the endurance of those within. Close your eyes. Hear the echo of the trebuchet, the crack of stone on stone, the cries of defenders and attackers alike. Feel the long silence of hunger, the weight of waiting in darkness, the rush of hope when survival comes. This was siege and survival in the life of a medieval castle. Not just stone against steel, but will against time. Next comes the decline of castles. Your eyes open again, and the castle feels different. The air is still. The courtyard is quiet. The walls, once alive with soldiers and servants, now stand bare. The torches are cold, the hearth dark. For this is not the castle in its glory, but in its decline. For centuries castles dominated the landscape of Europe. They stood as symbols of power, as fortresses of war, as homes of lords and ladies. Yet by the end of the Middle Ages their time was fading. The reason was simple and devastating: gunpowder. At first, cannons were small, unreliable, more frightening than effective. But as the 14th and 15th centuries passed, they grew larger, stronger, more precise. A single blast from a cannon could shake walls once thought unbreakable. No longer could stone alone protect those inside. The very thing that had made castles untouchable for centuries was undone in thunder and fire. Imagine the scene. An army approaches not with rams or ladders, but with rows of cannons. They are dragged into position, their barrels black and heavy. Powder is poured, shot is loaded, and with a deafening roar the cannon fires. The ground shakes, smoke clouds the air, and a stone wall crumbles. What once took decades to build could be shattered in hours. Castles were no longer the strongest shield. The age of fortresses gave way to the age of artillery. Kings and nobles began to favour new designs. Broad, low, star-shaped fortresses with angled walls that could deflect cannon fire. The tall, proud towers of medieval castles became vulnerable relics of an older time. But decline was not only about war, it was also about wealth and comfort. Nobles no longer wished to live in draughty halls, in smoke-filled chambers, in stone rooms that clung to dampness. As the Renaissance dawned, lords and ladies turned to palaces, airy, elegant homes filled with windows, gardens, fountains and light. Castles, with their narrow slits and cold walls, felt less like homes and more like prisons. Some castles were abandoned entirely, left to crumble on hilltops, their stones scavenged to build villages below. Others were converted into administrative centres, prisons or storage depots. A few, like Windsor Castle in England or Crac des Chevaliers in Syria, were maintained, rebuilt, and continued as strongholds for kings and armies. Walk now through the ruins in your mind. Ivy creeps along the broken walls. Birds nest in the towers once manned by archers. The great hall is open to the sky, its hearth cold, its benches long gone. The chapel echoes only with the wind. The stables are silent, their floors empty of straw. Yet decline does not mean disappearance. Castles endured in memory, in stories, in legends. Travellers marvelled at their ruins. Poets wrote of their grandeur. Artists painted their silhouettes at sunset. Even as their military use vanished, their symbolic power remained. Close your eyes and hear the wind across broken battlements, the soft drip of rain through cracked ceilings, the silence where once there was life. The castle, in decline, became something new, not a fortress of war, but a monument of history, a reminder of an age carved in stone. This was the decline of castles. Now, finale, let's talk about the legacy of castles. Your eyes open one last time, and the castle is both past and present. Its walls are no longer filled with lords and servants, soldiers and squires, yet still it stands, scarred, weathered, but enduring. For though the age of castles has ended, their legacy continues to shape the world we know. Even in ruin, castles command awe. Walk the halls of Conwy in Wales, Carcassonne in France, or Neuschwanstein in Germany, and you will feel it, the weight of history pressing down with every stone. Some stand empty, silent except for birds and wind. Others remain alive, restored for kings, queens and tourists alike. Wherever they rise, they remind us of the power they once held. Castles are more than stone, they are symbols. They speak of strength, authority and survival. For medieval peasants, a castle on the horizon meant safety in times of danger, a refuge when invaders came. For enemies, it meant defiance, a challenge to overcome. Even today, their silhouettes inspire feelings of awe, wonder and mystery. Their legacy also lives in stories, tales of knights and ladies, of sieges and rescues, of honour and betrayal. The myths of King Arthur's Camelot, the legends of damsels in towers, the romances of troubadours, all shaped by the presence of castles. Even fairy tales, with their enchanted keeps and dragon-guarded fortresses, echo the real stones that once stood on windswept hills. But beyond myth, castles tell us of real life. They were not only theatres of war, but homes of families, workplaces of servants, sanctuaries of faith. Within their walls people laughed, prayed, feasted, mourned, and endured. The tapestry of medieval life, harsh, fragile yet vibrant, is written into every corner of a castle's design. Today, their ruins are preserved, studied, and admired. Historians read their stones like books, tracing how walls were built, how defences evolved, how lives were lived. Archaeologists uncover pottery shards, tools, and bones, whispering of kitchens, workshops, and feasts. Tourists wander through great halls, touch the cold stone, and wonder what it must have been like when torches glowed and banners flew. Castles also endure in architecture. Their towers and battlements inspired later palaces and even modern buildings. Their sense of grandeur, of presence, still informs how we imagine strength and permanence. A castle on a hill remains one of the most powerful images of human history. Close your eyes now. Imagine standing on a grassy hill, looking out across valleys and rivers. In the distance, a castle rises, golden in the fading light of sunset. Its towers catch the last rays of the day, its stones glowing warm against the sky. You hear the wind whisper through empty halls, carrying echoes of laughter, of prayers, of battles long past. The people are gone, but the stones remain. The fires are out, but the memory glows. The walls may crumble, but the idea endures. This is the legacy of castles, not only as ruins of the past, but as timeless monuments, bridges between history and imagination. They remind us that even in decline, beauty can endure, and even in silence, stories can still be told.